Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of our meditation challenge. So I want to thank you guys once again for joining me on this 30 days to emotional mastery. This is going to be a really beautiful, powerful, integrative process where you and I will together dive deep into our emotions and learn how to work with the emotions in order to find emotional freedom. And as you know, we discussed this throughout the last couple sessions, that mastery over our emotions is really the key to finding, coming into a state of ultimate manifestation, mastering the present moment, healing the body, and tuning into our intuition in order to guide us moving into our next phase in our life. And this is something that is very important to educate not just ourselves, but our children, so that we can begin to train ourselves in healing for the future. So I'm going to just do a quick little shout out here for everyone that's tuning in, and I will post this and invite. Just give me 1 second. So today we're going to discuss surface and root emotions. So what are surface and root emotions? Emotions, sometimes we think that emotions are, just the feeling and the emotion and the sensation that we're having in that present moment, in the moment where we become triggered with certain circumstances. As soon as the emotion comes up, we think that that is the emotion, and that information that we feel when we're feeling that emotion, when we're triggered by something, we think that that's it, that's all there is to the experience. But actually, emotions are actually multi-layered data banks of information. And there are many levels, especially when we dive deep into the emotions, we begin to notice that actually emotions are in layers. And as we uncover those layers, we can go into primary, secondary, tertiary, and even continue finding levels of those emotions. What you discover by traveling and going deep into these layers of these emotions is actually a wealth of information, because this is how you understand how we program ourselves and how we are utilizing our past experiences, cyclical traumas, ancestral traumas, in order to access information that our brain is accessing, like files of information that we pull from, and we utilize and apply that into a current event that's occurring in that moment. And a lot of the reactions that we have to the experiences that we're having are usually mechanical, because we are not aware of ourselves. Oftentimes, we are not even aware of how we ended up in the circumstances that we're in these events, in these exchanges with others that begin to trigger these emotions. Through review, through meditation, when you begin to review your life, let's say in the past 24 hours, you kind of begin to notice that there's certain emotions that you mostly feel throughout your day. And we kind of, if you go back into the past week, into the past month, into the past year, you begin to notice that there's actually patterns to even those emotions that you're feeling. So it's almost as if we are continuing to feel the emotions, and they become a basis to the foundation of what makes up our personality. The personality is basically the projection of the ego and everything that we are, all the programs that make up our belief systems. So this is really important to understand how these layers of information begin to surface for us, because if we don't understand that process, most of the time we'll be completely unaware of why we react and respond to circumstances the way that we do. The majority of our behavior throughout the day, from the morning to night, it's usually a mechanical response. It's a reaction to the things that are happening. What would happen if you would be completely aware, conscious of yourself, your emotions, how you're feeling at every moment of the day, would translate into a completely different quality of life. because that connection with yourself means that there's congruency between your intention, your behavior, what you are speaking, what you're feeling, all of these dynamics that are inputting into the system of creation. You are fully aware of them. And that congruency allows for clarity in your intention of life, whatever you're putting into your system, your experience. So this is really important, because if we don't understand how we end up being reactionary in the way that we are, most of the time we will just think that that's a normal way of being, and we're going to find ways to cope with the ways that we react to things. Coping mechanisms can be anything from the food that we're eating, to the emotions that we're feeling, to the choices that we make in our life, to the fears and anxieties, and even our personality can become a coping mechanism. And essentially, your entire personality becomes a coping mechanism, mostly programmed as a result of traumatic experiences that happened as a child. A lot of these coping mechanisms are things that we picked up even in the womb. So going all the way back to the womb, the emotions that you felt in the womb, the emotions your mother, your father felt around you while you were in the gestation process, the events that you tuned into as an infant in that womb, all were immediate factors to begin to program the way that you feel about your existence and the kind of perception you're going to have about the feminine, masculine, and emotions, and the spectrum of emotions, your perception of life. If you think about that, that's pretty profound, because really it means, and this is where we start getting into the genetics of cyclical ancestral trauma, that we are a direct product of everything that we've experienced generationally. And our parents are a product of their generational traumas. Their parents are a product of their generation traumas, and so on and so forth, going all the way back to the very origin of time. All of these traumas that we've experienced are cause and effect of greater, larger systems of reality. And I guess cultivation and molding of societies into systems of control. So as a result of this kind of molding, directing, modifying societies into systems of control that are a product of religion, social societies, education, financial levels, cultural levels, race, sex, all of these things contribute to the way that we feel about ourselves in the world. And through further study and reflection of these systems, which is a huge invitation that I give everyone to do, is to kind of review these systems to see if you align with the way that we have been brought up, the belief systems our parents had, and what of those belief systems did we take on that form and mold the way we see the world. More importantly, how we feel about ourselves in the world, because all of these things helped mold our personalities. And why emotional work is so incredibly important, because if you begin to review these belief systems, you'll notice that the belief systems trigger directly certain emotions in your body. And a lot of times, because we haven't taken the time to sit with these emotions as a result of traumatic experiences, they become an absolute driving factor for everything in our life. And for most people, when you trace these emotions to the root, because these emotions have layers of information from the outside inward, what you'll discover, and this is an exercise that we're going to do in the next few days, feeling the emotions and looking at the layers of emotions. For most people, you will see that as you unpack each emotion, there is kind of like a hierarchy to the way that we perceive things, from micro to macro. And there are emotions that link to those perceptions because of the way that we've been programmed. And even if you look at different cultures and different races, different parts of the world, the way that they see things, a lot of times emotions are all going back to the root, in which we discover that there are two primary emotions that all humans are constantly navigating from. And one of them is fear, and the other is love. And these are the two primary dualistic expressions, emotional expressions, that are at the root, at the foot of all of this tree of emotions spectrum of emotions that we are capable of experiencing. And what that means is that when you get to that root, it kind of begins to simplify this kind of work of going through surface into root emotions, okay? The important thing to do in this work is that even though you'll discover that all your emotions root down into these two emotions, you are learning how you have become programmed by uncovering those emotions. Okay. Strange little interference there. So we are learning how we become programmed, because the way that we process emotions is the way that our belief systems and the way that our trigger process occurs. Okay, let's say that something very fearful occurred. Immediately we go into fight or flight, and there's a series of emotions that are attached to fight or flight dynamics that we want to kind of embody, that we portray in our experiences. So the idea is to begin to understand how we are reacting to things and the layer of emotions that we are mostly holding. You'll find that a lot of these emotions you've been feeling probably all your life. And for everyone, it's slightly different. Okay, it can be feelings of helplessness, feelings of regret, feelings of feeling uncomfortable, feelings of not being worthy, not being wanted. And the primary emotion that runs the majority of your life is usually found in the womb. The first conception of that primary emotion is found in the gestation process, okay? And you'll find that this becomes a theme for your whole life. It becomes a theme for your whole life for several reasons. Number one, you as a soul have incarnated into your physical body, attaching to a system of ancestral history. And that ancestral history has a theme to it. It holds that genetic data bank of ancestral lineage, holds a very specific vibrational frequency that has been cultivated since the origin of its conception. And it's been through evolution, through the many different timelines that connect into this ancestral lineage, there's been an evolutionary process. A vibrational frequency has changed. Every generation coming in has an opportunity to end certain cycles, start new cycles, work with old information and traumas, heal traumas and information. And every generation that chooses not to address those cyclical programs and trauma continues to repeat those cycles and trauma. However, in every generation, there's always evolution. There's always evolution in the perspective that there's some kind of change and shift that is occurring. And every single little increment of shift in healing of any kind, vibrational frequency change, plays a role in changing the collective frequency and the data that makes up this entire ancestral lineage. So whatever you're doing in your life to become a better person, personal development, healing, integration, you may think that it's very small and incremental, but it's actually literally modifying your genetic data for the collective ancestral lineage that you hold within you. Mitochondrial DNA is a photocopy of everything of the before. So it's within this structure of information that we continue to add and aggregate every single day is, like you can say, it's a tiny dot in this giant spectrum of information. And it's emotional information that is the primary language of vibrational frequency in the three-dimensional plane. So every single emotion that you feel from the moment you wake up, through the night, through your dream state, all of that is being encoded in vivo into your genetic makeup, okay? And it is addressing and changing cyclical genetic patterns that we're also holding in our system. So this is why healing is really important and really powerful, because we begin to kind of change these cyclical programs. the opportunity that each generation has, and this is where we can start talking about the different waves of consciousness that have been coming in. There's always higher waves of consciousness because of the model that we are coexisting in this multiverse. Everything is constantly evolving and moving. It's experiencing broader perspectives. It is experiencing cyclical patterns of expansion and contraction. So wherever we are at in this cyclical contraction or expansion, right now we are reaching a pinnacle point of expansion for our human race. And as we approach that pinnacle, it means that the collective vibrational frequency is higher. That heightened vibrational frequency allows us to access broader bands of DNA, broader bands of life force, and anchor broader bands of life force, have access to more of our fragmentation than we have had access to in other generations. Simultaneous generations. Okay, so that's like our ancestors, great-great-grandmother, great-great-grandfather, all the way back to the beginning of the conception, which again, I would love to break the concept that it's a linear time. We're talking about simultaneous fragments of ourselves that are continuing to experience and connect with these parts of ourselves that are also having an opportunity to heal. So the work that we're doing in this plane, healing and integrating, is paramount. And it is every moment of your day plays a role in that. Okay, so those of you that are seekers, those of you that are healers, have a wonderful opportunity to be able to change whatever it is that you want to change and heal within yourself and your family. Especially if you have children, healing these ancestral traumas before you conceive would be ideal, because everything that's in your genetic makeup is being passed down into the new child being created. The new child is inherently designed with higher vibrational frequency anyway, but it is a higher new perspective of old programs that we have had. If we heavily bombard that fetus in the body with our heavy programming, fears, anxieties, and emotions, it's going to utilize that information to begin to create its perception of its life and its reality, just like we have. So working with surface and root emotions means that we are getting to the root cause of why we feel the way that we feel in our everyday life, why we feel the strong emotions, why we have certain limitations, themes for life, things that constrict us, block us, make us feel unworthy. All of these things are super, super important, and they play a role in our ability to expand ourselves and to heal. Healing means becoming whole. Healing means being able to see yourself as more than just this idea that you are the story that was handed to you, or that you are a victim of the things that are occurring to you. Okay, so this is the invitation here. So in today's practice, we are going to utilize what we learned yesterday and the day before to begin to work with these emotions. We're going to begin to unpack emotions, learn how to feel and sense primary, secondary, tertiary for some, and then root emotion. The levels of emotions that are available to people depend on how much they have been storing and suppressing their emotions. If you're someone that suppresses your emotions, neglects, ignores emotions a lot, there's going to be a lot of levels there for you to unpack. And that means that DNA reprogramming, you would have to do it in increments, because in one session, probably you're going to unpack maybe a couple layers of that information, but then you will, you will always come to the conclusion of love or fear, but that it doesn't stop there. In this process, you are learning what it means to embody unconditional love and how to love yourself, which is the most important thing. we need to learn how to love ourselves, because as an organism of creation, as a whole, as a part of a collective, loving the self means that you are becoming conscious of yourself. Okay, this is where you begin to tune into that singularity, and you begin to affect now what you're co-creating with humanity. Okay, so that level of awareness and consciousness only can happen when you love ourselves, because you are seeing yourself as you are without limitations or hiding from the shadow. And that allows you to begin to understand beyond the illusion of the physical, that you have access and the ability to enter into higher dimensional aspects of yourself. You are more than just this physical experience, okay? And that kind of vision is important for us to work on cultivating as we move forward here as a human race, because this is the new human. The new human doesn't just see itself in its life as a victim, it sees itself as a whole. And that broader perspective allows for more flow. At least we need to cultivate that flow. We need to cultivate that expansiveness within us. Okay, so we're going to feel the emotions, and I'd love for you. This is going to be it's day 3. Day 2, we focused on identifying the emotions in the whole body, feeling the emotions in the organs, in every section of the body, bringing presence into the body. And you learned a lot about the kind of emotions that you have stored within your body. So today we're going to observe the emotion, and we're going to unpack that emotion together, okay, and see where it takes us. So I want you all to get very nice and comfortable, and please, thank you for your amazing questions. I'm going to answer them at the end, so please write them in the chat box if you have any questions about what we just discussed, and I'll love to answer them. So we're going to start by inhaling deeply and exhaling. Allowing yourself to completely reconnect with your body with every breath you take, and just coming into a state of observation, observing the body. Breathing deeply. As we inhale, we allow that oxygen to enter all the way down to the base of the spine, allowing that belly to rise and fall with every breath that you take. Rise and fall, okay? Coming into a state of calm. Breathing deeply. Okay, and in this stillness, you begin to become aware of your body as you take your attention down to your feet, your shins, your calves, and just bringing the attention there completely to every part of the body. It's like waking up the entire leg, waking up the entire foot, bringing the attention there, okay? Going up to the knees, the thighs, the hips, the back, the solar plexus. Going up into the chest, into the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the neck, the face. Releasing the brow, the cheekbones, the jaw. Breathing deeply. Trying to stay as still as possible. The stillness of your body helps you calm the monkey mind. So the stiller you are, the more you'll be able to begin to kind of observe the monkey mind and bring it into a state of calm. And we're going to begin to tune into our senses as we bring ourselves more into the present moment. What are you smelling? What are you sensing around you? What are you feeling? And we're going to feel with the entire skin, which is the largest organ in our body. So tune into what you're sensing around you now energetically. Tune into the space that you're in. 360 degrees as you begin to become aware of the space that you're sitting in. What does it feel like to be in the room that you're in? Do you pick up any emotions of the space that you're in? Is there anyone else in the space that you're in? Do you feel them? Okay. And I want you to direct your attention at this heightened level of awareness to create a bubble around your body, a sphere. Okay. Creating that sphere around your body. And just immediately becoming aware of our energetic field. Taking a moment to repair our auric field from the heavy day. So everything that you've experienced today, any heaviness, anxieties, fears, angers, frustrations, anything that has taken your attention away from your body, focus on those parts of the body and just imagine that you are sealing your bubble around you in those areas that are open, that have become unconscious today. Creating a really nice, strong sphere all around your body. Solid, without any openings, any tears, nice and thick all the way around. Go ahead and visualize now that you're going to anchor yourself into the center of the earth. And make your grounding cord really nice and thick. This is going to help us with the accuracy of the emotions and the clarity of the emotions that you're feeling. Because the more you are in your body, the more you can understand what's going on. Okay, most of us don't want to be in the body, and therefore that's why we have a difficult time even identifying what we're feeling, what we're sensing. So being in the body is the key to a heightened intuition and to our superpowers, really, as humans. Breathing deeply. Okay. So now that you're here, let's begin to review the past 24 hours. Okay. Really notice the past 24 hours, any emotions that may have come up. See yourself from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. And then again this morning. Yesterday and today. What influenced your reactions throughout the day? What triggered you? And you're looking at both emotions, positive and negative. Get to know yourself. The more you know yourself, the less others can try to define you, title you, name you. Because you know yourself so well. The less people can try to control, manipulate, influence. So take a look at yourself. How often do we give our power away in these past 24 hours? How often do we abandon ourselves in the past 24 hours? How often do we not want to be in the body in the past 24 hours? We just abandon, neglect what we feel. Okay, so just notice yourself there. Notice how this is, a lot of these tactics are an expression of survival. Okay, how many of us are in survival, in constant survival mode? Just observe. We're all experiencing different levels of this. Just notice, what level are you at? Just by observing yourself. Is this something that we do all the time? Does it direct every scenario in our life? Or is it just something that happens once in a while when we forget? And if so, what is the thing that triggers us into that survival? Really important. So go ahead and tune in now to the emotion that stands out the most in the past 24 hours. It should be pretty easy to tune into that, okay? Because you're quite familiar and it's at the surface. And this is the surface emotion that you're identifying right now. The surface emotion, I want you to identify where in your body you have that emotion stored. So you're going to start feeling the emotion. So locate where in the body you're storing that emotion. So when we say the emotion, whatever it is, you can name it out. It can be fear. Notice what part of your body tenses up the most, tightens, feels stiff, feels heavy, sometimes feels warm. So all of us have different ways of reading our holographic body. You find your way. You might hear it, you might sense this, you might visualize it, you might feel it in your body. So tune into the body. Okay, it should be quite easy because it's just right there. It's your body. Okay. So go ahead and feel that emotion and you're going to be present with it. So what does it mean to be present with an emotion? It means that you're going to allow yourself to feel it completely without resistance, without denial, without judgment. You're just going to allow yourself to feel it in its totality, in all of its expression. And this can be quite intimidating for some because you'll notice that you've spent a lot of time trying to avoid feeling this emotion, okay? But precisely because you've spent a lot of time avoiding means that it could be a lifetime of continuing feeling this emotion and avoiding it, see? So feel that emotion, and as you sit with it, you're going to begin to notice that there's a process, emotion feeling from beginning to end. At first, it gets really intense, and depending on how much you've been in denial of it, it's going to be even more intense for you. So I want you to be very patient with yourself during this process. As you sit with the emotion, you're going to begin to feel other emotions. Other thought forms are going to present themselves, okay? So go ahead and observe them. And if you have a notepad next to you, I want you to write the emotion that you feel and write the emotions underneath that are coming up as a result of that original emotion. So I'm going to do an example. Let's start with the example of fear. Well, let's start with something more common. Let's say anger, okay? So let's go ahead and feel the feeling of anger in the body, and I'm going to just tune in, and I feel it more over here in the solar plexus. So as I'm feeling anger, I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to observe that emotion. And as I feel it, I begin to feel the intensity in the solar plexus, and then it moves up to the chest, and it's almost as if the heart tightens, okay? So as I feel that emotion there in the chest, in the heart, the back also becomes tense, my abdomen becomes tense, the sexual organs become heightened, okay? My left side of the body becomes tense, okay? So as I feel that emotion and all of those sensations, which are completely valid and incredibly important, what I'm discovering right now is that this one emotion has triggered and is stored within the muscle memory of all of these areas of my body, okay? So this is what you're discovering right now just by feeling that emotion. It's connected to all these areas of the body, which means that in every single muscle, tendon, nerve, skin of the body that is feeling that tension of that emotion, there's a memory that you've had in the past, in this lifetime, can't even be another lifetime, but it's because you're feeling it today, it's in this lifetime, okay? It's at the surface. Okay, so as you acknowledge all those parts of the body that are beginning to become active, okay, you're going to just sit with those sensations. Even if they get intense, you're going to allow yourself to breathe through, and you're observing yourself having that emotion. So watch yourself have it. Notice what else, where else it wants to go. Notice what else it wants to do in the body. And if you've observed it long enough, that those sensations will begin to subside. They will begin to become lighter. This is where I want you to pay attention, because you're going to start getting information. You're going to get other emotions. So write down the emotions underneath this emotion. Our example was anger. Okay, so I'm going to write down anger. And in that anger, let's see, what is the emotion that comes up? Helplessness, abandonment, frustration, judgment. Okay, so list it out, every single emotion. Okay, very good. So as you feel the list of emotions, I want you to select and observe the one that is the strongest. Which one is the strongest? So you started out with anger. Anger is the primary emotion, surface emotion. We're unpacking it. You just listed out these other emotions. What's the next strongest emotion? Is it helplessness? Is it frustration? Okay, so take a look at that. So sometimes you might have two strong emotions. Sometimes it'll be very clear and it'll be one. It's okay. Take those two or one emotions. We want to avoid going for three of those emotions, just because I want you to narrow and focus down on what is being felt the strongest. This is the easiest and fastest way to get to the root. Okay, so as you feel that emotion, you're going to begin to again sit with that emotion, observe it just the way you did before. Now we're going into the secondary emotion. Okay, so as you feel that emotion, let's say in this case it's helplessness, it's the strongest one. So you're going to sit with that emotion. And I want you to just notice, okay, how familiar are you with this secondary emotion? Chances are this is an emotion that you've been feeling for a very long time, and it's triggered pretty easily in you. Okay, so this is where we start getting to the good stuff. Okay, so as this is a surface secondary emotion, we are beginning to uncover some patterns here. And I want you to notice, how often do you feel this emotion? Okay, if you say every day in different levels, now you're getting to some really important information. Okay, so go down to the next one now. Observe that emotion. And as you observe that emotion, you're going to have another layer of other emotions. So in that helplessness, there's anger. Okay, so go ahead and tune into that anger, rage, whatever's coming up. List it down again. Write it down on your list. Okay. Now, as you feel this third emotion now, localize it on the body. Where in the body does this live? What part of your body tenses up as you begin to feel that emotion? Okay, so identify it. And what's going to happen is that different areas of your body are going to lighten up now. They're going to heighten, intensify. So you are now uncovering another layer in your hologram with all kinds of data, all kinds of past memories that are connected to this one emotion. Do you see that? If you sit with every single part of of the body that is being triggered by that emotion, if you sit with that, you're going to start to get memories, events that happened in your life. This is where the magic happens, because these experiences, these events are where we have fragmented in our lives. Right now, you are reading the Akash, you are reading your holographic DNA, you are tuning into the information within the morphogenetic field, because this is where all this data lives, it exists. And this is the expression of everything that is encoded in your holographic DNA. So imagine the holographic DNA like a hologram that starts to project data. All of this information, emotional data that you've just tuned into, is constantly living in your energetic body. Now, why this is important is because these emotions that you just uncovered are actually the frequency that's creating your resonance. From this resonance, it's what creates and attracts people, places, and things and experiences to you. Okay? So all these emotions are the ones that are creating for you. And what ends up happening is that we become slaves to these emotions. Why? What does that mean? Because everything in our life now becomes a focus in order to avoid this emotion, because we've been spending a lot of time feeling it. It's been overwhelming. We don't want to feel it, all of that. Major shout out to Dave from Spaced Out Radio. Love you so much. Thank you so much for being here for that super chat. All my love to you. So let's continue. All right. So now that we're here in this space, we're going to go deeper. I want you to go now to the next layer of emotions. Okay. So go ahead and feel that next emotion, the strongest of those emotions that you've discovered. Okay, we're going to go into the tertiary emotion now. And this is where we begin to access the root. So I want you to feel this next emotion. Okay, so for example, I went from anger to helplessness, and under helplessness, I'm going to start to name out the emotions that I feel. Okay. So I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say overwhelm, helplessness, disconnect. Okay. So disconnect from source, disconnect from the self. So these are all a result of that emotion. So check in with yourself, see what you're feeling. And from these three emotions, which one is the strongest? So let's take a look at that. So confusion. So the more you sit within and identify it, the more clear more clarity you're going to have. Okay, so there's a concept of confusion, let's say. Okay, feeling lost, disconnected. So disconnect is really the thing. So you're going to take that emotion, and I'm going to identify where in the body I'm feeling it. Okay. And for me, I'm feeling it here in the chest, in the solar plexus. It's like the heart. And an interesting thing for me, it's not in the body, it's actually in my energetic field. Okay, so a lot of you that are quite sensitive, you might notice that these emotions are not necessarily in the body, they're outside in your fields. And the longer we've rejected it and been unconscious of it, the further away in the body it will be. The closer to the body it is, it means that we're actively in it at all times. Okay, so this really helps us understand our programming and why we behave the way we do. So go ahead and tune in. So as this emotion is just right here, I'm going to see it, feel it, and I'm going to recognize it. So I'm going to take myself back to the very first time that I felt that emotion. And this is my root emotion. Okay, so as I feel this emotion, feeling of disconnect, I'm taken to a past life. And for many of you here, you're going to go into your life. So take yourself back to a memory that highlighted that emotion. Okay, take yourself back. See yourself in that memory and just observe yourself. What are you feeling in that moment? What's happening in this scenario? What triggered that emotion to happen? Go ahead. What triggered you to have this emotion? Okay. Okay, and as you observe that emotion, you begin to notice that there are agreements that were made to this experience. So just run through the experience, notice why you're feeling that way, what triggered you to feel that way. Take a look at the other person, notice their patterns around creating that emotion in their life. What you're going to notice is that this progression that we have made from primary to tertiary emotion is the exact thing that we've learned from the people that are inflicting this emotion on us. They also have the same process, and it might not be apparent immediately, but as you begin to dive and observe this other participant in this experience, you're going to notice that you have been connected by resonance, because both of you are actually feeling the same root experience, root emotion. So in the hierarchy of these emotions, the root emotion is actually the language that we're speaking with our genetic data and with our overall life experience. So if we want to find liberation, freedom, healing, this is the one that we have to address. So I want you to see yourself in that moment, and we're just going to say, what is it that you need in order to not feel the way that you're feeling in that moment? What would be the opposite of this emotion? So take a look at that. The opposite of this low emotion would be a higher match. So you're going to find that higher match. So let's say in this case, the emotion is disconnect. Okay. The opposite of disconnect is connection, unity. Okay. So what does it take in order to feel that profound connection? Okay, what do you need from yourself, for example, in order to feel this direct opposite, this higher octave, this contrast, its dualistic opposite? Okay, just sit with that for a moment. Observe yourself. You're learning a lot about your needs. You're understanding a lot about how to reach that point, and you're reprogramming your genetic data right now with this practice. Okay. How? Because you are breaking old neural pathways that brought you to this behavior, with replacing it with new neural pathways. And the new neural pathway is basically how to reach this opposite emotion. Okay, so go ahead and see yourself there, and you're going to provide your fragment with everything that it requires in order to embody the higher octave, the opposite of that emotion. See that there. Allow yourself to absorb everything that it requires in order to no longer feel this way. And this is where we start in the Akashic field. Right now, you're working in your multidimensional body. You may think that you're working in your body right now, but you are literally rewriting data and working with information. Now, remember that there is no linear time, okay? So everything that we're doing, we are accessing points of simultaneous action that are embedded within our multidimensional body, okay? And the direct shift that happens is healing in the body. So let's say that this root emotion is linked with an illness that we have manifested over time. The more that you deprogram yourself from feeling these emotions, the more you heal your body. Literally, if you have a terminal illness, the side effects of that terminal illness will alleviate. Okay, this is what happens. This is how you heal the body. And over time, sustained work in this emotional body, the body that has mastery over its emotions, illness cannot exist, okay? And even though we have perhaps terminal illnesses that are karmic contracts that we have made in other lifetimes to experience in this lifetime, the side effects, the pains, the discomfort that doesn't allow us to do what we're here to do will be less. It will be manageable in a way where you will be able to live a constructive, creative life. And this is what we want to achieve. Every organism in the planet wants to achieve, okay? Because that's its optimum health. So go ahead and see yourself there. And as you allow yourself to heal, you can tune in to the fragments that were created in this experience. So I want you to see all of the different experiences in your life that have felt this same emotion. You're going to find that there's hundreds of them from the womb until today, hundreds of potentially thousands of days that you have been triggered by this root emotion. So see those parts of you. Those are existing fragments that are creating alternate timelines that are directly affecting your timeline in this moment, because they are inputting your vibrational frequency. They are inputting and feeding into what you are today. Okay, so we're going to address those as you see them in a crowd, surround them in a golden sphere of light, and allow them to absorb this healing now. The healing is everything that they need in order to no longer feel that way. So let's say in this case, it was disconnect. How does one feel connected? It sees itself as all. So I will provide acknowledgement, healing, and love, unconditional love, because the only way to see yourself as the all is feeling unconditional love for myself and everything. Okay, so we're going to provide that for all the fragments. And the fragments begin to repair, they begin to stand up straighter, they begin to heal, they begin to change their frequency. You're going to see physical changes in them, energetic color changes in them, temperature changes in them, physical, in your physical body, you're going to feel a shift. All of these things are a result of this work. So just be mindful and observant of how you are experiencing this healing. Okay, so see your fragments reintegrating now into one. And this is the healed part of you. So today you have access the root emotion and learn to heal root emotions. So see the fragment of yourself and breathe deeply, integrating that into your body. This is who you are. You are basically feeding information, holographic information, in order to change the information that is writing your code of your physical body right now. So as you reintegrate that, you're going to integrate it into the root, the sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, because these centers, these vortices of data, of energy, of life force, are running programs. And as we input this healing, we are shifting the frequency of the information that we're outputting into our everyday life, okay? So remember, everything is energy. Nothing can be destroyed or eliminated, only reallocated. So at this time, we are reallocating heavy density life force for expansive light life force, okay? So surround your body in this golden sphere of light, and you're going to fill yourself with unconditional love, accepting this healing in your body, acknowledging yourself, acknowledging the journey, acknowledging the emotions. And as you observe now that you've changed your frequency, when you look back at these memories and these triggers, now your perspective has changed. You literally have programmed yourself to see the world different from the way that you were encoded and indoctrinated as a child. And even in the womb, we are programmed from those emotions. So you begin to see things a little bit differently now because you've gone through that process. This is the incredible power of surface and root emotions and working with the entanglement of those things, okay? So as you integrate in your body, you're gonna connect with yourself, heal yourself. I want you to set the intention that tomorrow, when you wake up, you're going to be really mindful of the emotions that you're feeling from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, to avoid having unconscious reactions, responses, mechanical responses to the experiences and events that you're having. So set the intention, and I want you to provide yourself with everything that you need in order to embody mindful awareness of yourself and your emotions in the next 24 hours. So take a moment and give yourself everything that it needs in order to be aware of its emotions, okay? So this is really huge because you begin to notice anxieties, fears, doubts, resentments towards the self, disbeliefs in the selves that might be coming up around this awareness, and just plain fear, okay? So provide yourself with safety, with love, acknowledgement. Notice that when you shift the need, the external need to feed these things, you begin to become empowered. You understand you are the provider of all the things that you require in your life. So allow yourself to absorb from source, from the infinite that you are, channeling into this one fractal hologram of your experience called you, whoever, whatever your name is. Okay, so just acknowledge yourself in that moment. I'm going to say Geraldine, and the fragments that she has created from many lives now don't have to be repeated. Okay, so give yourself that acknowledgement, and just notice that your body just begins to just become loose, expansive, connected, more fluid. Okay, so this is where we want to live. So as you see yourself in this moment, go ahead and see yourself grounded down to the center of the earth. Visualize this field around you, and you're going to go ahead and open your eyes. And with your eyes open, you're going to begin to see everything around you. Okay, excellent, very good. So I want to welcome you back. Thank you so much for joining me. And you're going to continue this awareness for the next 24 hours. You know, being conscious of yourself and the emotions so that you notice, you know, the triggers, why you're triggered the way you are, so that you can begin to change in these new ways of seeing the world. So let me go down the chat and let's answer some questions. Major shout out to Dave. Dave, if you're still here, so much love to you. Thank you for that super chat. You know, your super chats really help me support this and other projects that I'm also doing to help support you in the best way that I can. So I am really grateful for that. Truly, it's a gift. Angie, thank you so much for being here. Luana, Crystal, hi Crystal, Cedric, so good to see you here. Zarelda, wow, I love that name. I was waiting. Thank you for waiting, Zarelda. Thank you. I had a very busy day today. Greg Herrera, so great to see you. Geraldine, I admire your drive. You must be exhausted. Thank you. It's been a long day, but this makes me really happy. So thank you for waiting for me today. ET1, hi guys. Angie, hi ET, and all in the chat. ET1, Geraldine, so good to see you. You are so amazing. Much love and light. Much love to you. Good morning, Marilena. Cedric says, do reacting to a certain situation come directly from subconscious old programming? Yes, and so, you know, the subconscious mind, you know, there's two sides to this that we need to become aware. The subconscious mind is the one that drives everything that we're experiencing. So if you think about that, everything that you think of yourself and the world around you creates a vibrational frequency, because there is one main thought form that runs the show. Like you saw today, in today's example, it was disconnect, feeling disconnected from the source, for example, right? And that we went through that level. It was disconnect, helplessness, and anger. Okay, so did you see how we went down that path? So all of these emotions, anger, helplessness, disconnect, are emotions that are running. The one that is the subconscious mind is the disconnect. Okay, so the root emotion is in the subconscious mind. Okay, so that's the program that's running in the background. That's why it's really important for you to identify your root emotions. The surface emotions is just the product of all of the survival and what's the word? All the survival and coping mechanisms that we've created in order to not feel the disconnect or the helplessness. Okay, those two emotions, the surface emotion. And a lot of people, they think it's just negative emotions. A lot of times in my sessions, people feel joy, for example, but when they sit with that joy, they begin to uncover many more things underneath that. Sometimes underneath that joy is anxiety, sometimes it's people pleasing, sometimes it's trying to control situations, for example, and then they discover that all of that is rooted in fear or fear of rejection. Okay, so as you can see, these emotions are very complex, and this is why in the conscious community, a lot of people say, oh, we need to be in a constant state of high vibration and joy all the time. And I don't agree with that, because either emotion in either side of the spectrum can be an imbalance. Anytime that we're in one end of the spectrum or the other, we are imbalanced. The only way to be balanced and to even potentially begin to access truth is by being in the center neutral point as an observer, because you're looking at everything. And this is actually what we want to try to achieve here. We are not trying to achieve happy-go-lucky love and light all the time, because that is inauthentic, that is out of balance. What would be the most empowering for humans is to come into a state of neutral observation. And that can be very scary, because we are programmed and bombarded with social conditioning, and religion, and even our sex is defining, it's being defined for us how we need to feel, how we need to look as a result of our emotions. So if something good happens to you, you have to have joyful, right? And we have television programs that show us behaviors and ways of being, and we think that's the right way. We're also programmed for how we see our families, right? Mom has to play a certain role, dad has to be a certain way, and you have all these silly little structures of the way that we look at ourselves and each other, and then those create unrealistic expectations for ourselves, our partners, everything, you know? So these are all false programming that is not rooted in genuine human expression. And the more we look at surface and root emotions, the more we're going to understand how we are programmed. The more, when you sit and watch that TV show, you will become horrified, because you begin to become aware of how we're manipulated through sexuality, through fears, through insecurities, by the things that we're watching, hearing, feeling. And as a collective, let's talk about the past 2 years, you know, inducing these feelings of fear, insecurity, doubt. And how do you control society and humanity? Is by sustaining them in that constant state of doubt, constant state of fear and disconnect from themselves. And so everything will be done, and is being done, through court cases that are publicized, through major events and you know, terrible things in the news that are happening, in order to distract you from your connection to yourself. And this is where, you know, our unconsciousness is weaponized against us in such a profound way. So the mastery of the emotions is really the key to sovereignty. And what does it mean to be sovereign? It's not that you're disconnected and isolated and individual and independent. We are interdependent as a human race, but this sovereignty allows you to choose what is good for yourself and the collective in a way that's constructive as a creative human. And this is, when you're at that vibrational frequency, this is where you can start playing with the, you know, the big league per se, that you begin to access higher ways of energy, you know, cultivation, life force, you know, manifestation, healing of the bodies and others. This is where we want to reach. This is the future of our human race. So this is where, you know, we need to address those subconscious programmings, because again, everything that's in the subconscious mind is a combination of things that are in the collective unconscious that play out directly for us through our ancestral lineage and cyclical ancestral programs that we are holding in our genetic data. So that deprogramming helps us to begin to address that subconscious pool of information. And with your work, eventually you begin to affect the collective data bank. Okay, so that's where we all want to reach as creators and manifestors. Greg Herrera says, question, did you say that we can change the past by our healing, like a form of time travel, changing the ancestral DNA? Awesome question. I get asked this a lot. And the thing is that we have to remember that we keep wanting to use time as a way to measure. And we need to shift the way that we look at everything. From a linear perspective into an understanding that everything is simultaneous. Yesterday has become a point of reference, a vibrational frequency that you can access from today's presence. 3 years ago is another point of vibrational reference that you can access from today's point. The future is a point of vibrational frequency that you can access from today's point. Okay, this is how we can tune into our intuition and kind of understand what is taking place or potentially is taking place by becoming aware of all the points that make up our reality, because it's your hologram. You are inputting into that hologram. Okay, so it's not time travel. We time travel, if you want to talk about time travel, we have the capacity and the ability to be in simultaneous timelines at all times. And we are constantly moving in and out of potential timelines by the information that we're inputting into the hologram. So let's say right now something happens that really triggers me and I begin to feel anger. Right now with that anger, I am producing life force that's going to create a potential timeline. From that timeline is going to immediately begin to create veins of other potential timelines that become accessible. And they exist. The fact that you already felt that emotion, you have created into the system. Remember yesterday I was talking about how there is a lag time in co-creation in the physical realm? Well, in other dimensional planes, we immediately create, and we are creating immediately in those dimensional planes. The fact that we tune into thoughts, some people are fearful of death, for example, and they create death scenarios all the time. You're literally encoding your body and creating frequency points of thoughts of death and potential timelines that you're creating in your space. And at any time that that potential timeline coincides with your intention and is congruent with your resonance and frequency, you're going to pull it into your present experience. Okay, that's how it works. If your resonance is matching any one of these potential timelines that you're creating, either in the waking state or in dream state, you're going to pull it into your waking state. Okay, so that's how powerful that is. And so we are kind of moving in and out of these timelines, and how ancestral DNA isn't being rewritten because, again, it's simultaneous. It already exists. It already exists. It's a frequency. What we're doing is you are writing in vivo, changing the entire whole by your change, because you are how should I put this? These energetic points are only holographic expressions. So the consciousness to affect them is only through your physical body, because you are projecting into the hologram. You are present in this. When you become conscious and aware in this body, you're affecting all of these different points of reference. And that's how you can begin to reintegrate your fragments. Reintegration of fragments, I'm going to do another meditation day on that. But the reintegration of the fragment is becoming aware and waking up the consciousness of this point of reference. Okay, it's you, it's yourself, that it's yourself becoming aware. And the more points that we wake up, that we become aware of, the bigger we grow in our light, the more light we can anchor through the body, because all our points begin to anchor light. They are dormant when we're unconscious of them. Okay, so that's what it means to become aware. And so our genetic DNA is holding all of this information, everything. It's all hosted in the information. Okay. All right, so let's see what other questions. You should make a Discord. I have a Discord. I don't know how to use it. I will try. That's a good idea. A lot of people have been telling me about that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jolie. Thank you from Italy. Oh, thank you so much, Vicky. Hello to Italy. Thank you so much for your love, Geraldine. Love you too. How do I know if my ego isn't projecting a neutral personality? How do you know if your ego isn't projecting a neutral personality? Well, here's the thing. What is the personality? Let's just start right there. A personality is a holographic projection. Let's just say it's a projection of the ego. So anytime we have a personality is a definition, okay? It's kind of like the death of infinite potential, because you've created a construct. Anytime that you create any kind of construct that is defined by a name, a color, a frequency, a thought form, you've limited yourself from becoming the whole. Okay, so the thing is that we want to pull away from identification and from creating more personalities, because personalities are just coping mechanisms. Okay, we create personalities in order to cope with experiences that we're having. So the more that we heal and reintegrate, you will notice that really you're not that personality. That personality was you maybe a couple of years ago, or it was you for 5 seconds as a result of an experience that happened. But now you're ready to move on and see other things. And this is part of the evolutionary process. We want to become all and nothing at the same time. And it's not that we want to become that, we become that, we are that at the core of this conscious experience that we're having right now, this experiment of consciousness. So neutrality is the ability to observe everything that's happening without having to define it or entangle yourself in it. When we become identified with experiences that happen, we become entangled energetically, emotionally, physically, and again, you're creating these points of reference. So the more observant we are, the less we're entangling and fragmenting into the matrix, and you become the matrix. Okay, you become whole, you become the all, and your life is a constant observation and flow of experience. This is how you become like a god, essentially. Okay, you become this infinite potential. So this is how I would suggest to navigate personalities. When not in love and light or neutral, how do we stay there longer without going back in autopilot mode? It's awareness, okay? Because autopilot mode means that we're hypnotized by something, okay? And being hypnotized is leaving the body. We're not even in the body. We don't want something triggered us in a way where it was overwhelming to feel, and therefore we checked out. Okay, anytime trauma, the definition of trauma is any time that you feel helpless. Okay, so if you feel helpless in any given moment, it means that in your data bank, in your file cabinet of experiences, you don't have the tools or the information to be able to apply and react to this experience in a way that is going to make you feel safe, that is acknowledging yourself, that is conducive to yourself. And that means that we have a profound lack of awareness and knowledge of ourselves. So getting to know yourself first by the work that we're doing, understanding yourself in the spectrum of emotions, allows you to get to know yourself and why you react the way you do to experiences. This level of awareness makes it nearly impossible to go into autopilot. because you now are very aware and connected with yourself, and you're okay with the things that you're feeling. Because the moment you judge, or the moment that you start feeling overwhelmed, that is fight or flight, that's survival. So we now are not living in survival. So the best way to bring yourself into a state of consciousness, conscious awareness, is to be absolutely present in a state of observation. This will not allow you to be in autopilot. And this is something that we have to cultivate and train ourselves, because it's very hard. Like, we can set the intention in the morning to be present, but it's not just doing in the morning or in the night or in the middle. It's every second of your day. That's like right now, completely hyper aware, omnipresent with yourself and everything around you. Okay, continue that. At first, it's going to feel daunting, because that means you have unresolved emotions. So deal with the emotions so that the present becomes, comfortable in a way. I shouldn't say comfortable, because the present moment is going to be consistently moments of unknown, moments of potentially taking you out of your comfort zone. And that's part of the evolutionary process as a human. So we just have to be okay with the unknown, and that will allow you to be okay in the present all the time. Okay. So Mary Anna K says, wow, thank you, Geraldine. That meditation was so powerful. The buildup negative energy was so heavy. I feel like I was made of lead. I always felt that when I was young, and a lot of things came up. That's amazing, amazing sensation. So I'm so glad you were able to reach the young memory. Blanca says, does real personality actually exist after someone has integrated all their aspects and become whole? Okay, yeah, this is really, really interesting. Or is it something we ought to lose? So Blanca, this goes into another level of study of ourselves. And there is a personality of sorts, and the true personality. First of all, we have to overcome layers of this matrix. The first layer is the immediate personalities made to survive your current life story. The second layer are the archetypes that you are cycling through your ancestral lineage. The archetype that you're cycling through would be, let's say, your astrological sign, for example. Okay, so let's say in the astrological sign, there's a certain list, and this is just an example. I'm not saying that is true and that we have to abide by that, but it's an influence of information that makes up who you are, like an astrological sign. And we are born in the month and date of the year that most highlights the vibrational frequency of the universe in resonance with the mission that you're here to carry out. That is a direct product of all the cycles of ancestral history. Okay, so in your historic, if you look at all the birth dates of all of your ancestors, you're going to notice a pattern. Okay, and that pattern, you're cycling through all 12 months or 13 months. I think it's 13 actually, in which we are becoming aware of different archetypal fragmentations that we are experiencing as a collective. Infinite consciousness in this current timeline is divided into 13 fragments, 13 spectrums of frequency. So we as a collective race have to learn to experience all one of those spectrums, all one of those archetypes, in order to reach back to home, which is source, to become whole again. And so we do this in cycles through our past lives within our ancestral lineages, and we're doing it in this life by transcending the cycles. Once you become whole, you transcend patterns and celestial influences such as astrological signs and the influences and lessons that those carry for you as a human. When you go to the higher level, you're going to meet interdimensional beings of a spectrum that you have to transcend as well. When you get to the higher level, you are light and you have to transcend spectrum of frequency, colors, sounds, shapes, geometries. Okay, so we're doing this infinitely. We are transcending patterns of organized information into infinity. Okay, so this is like the whole human experience. So let's bring it back to home. You as a soul, based on what you want to experience in this limited 100 years, provides you with certain knowledge and access to species, access to archetypes of yourself in the past that will help make your journey productive. Okay, so whatever it is that you're here to do for the world, you have experienced many lifetimes and have another opportunity to transcend if you want that. And remember that ultimately there's no right and wrong, there's no higher, there's no lower. We are here to experience everything. So whatever your soul set out to experience in this current timeline, you are encoded with that tools to do that. The job is to identify what you are as a whole and what you want to do in this lifetime. There's no limit to what that is. So that would be kind of defining what it would be to have a true personality, if you were to say it that way. Okay. I would say your signature, your frequency signature, which again is an evolutionary process. We go from the lowest to the highest point of your signature. Pono says, shedding fractals as thoughts through the toroidal vortices into the cosmos. Yeah. Cedric says, thank you. I'm appreciative of this response. Thank you very much. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun with you today. If you have any questions, put it down in the message below, and I will love to include that in the future exercises that we do. And sending you all my love. Have an amazing day, and I will see you tomorrow.